Oh? Could it be? We got one! Welcome, bones and ghouls, to Indieween, that lovely time of year where you can go outside without getting annihilated by the sun, and in order to spite the predatory pricing models, I go find a cool, spooky indie game for every weekend of the month whose prices will total up to less than the cost of a single AAA release. How can I do this? Well, for one, more and more games are asking for $70 on release, and there being only 4 weekends this October, it's not exactly a tall ask, and for another, I've got a hell of a backlog. Tonight's spooky game is none other than Dread Delusion, a game I've been following for at least a couple years now that finally left early access this summer. Dread Delusion is made by one lovely Hellplace, which is also a very apt way of describing the aesthetic of the game. Dread Delusion is a first-person sword and sorcery RPG, and is a game I found myself both metaphorically and quite literally getting just utterly lost in. A type of sensation I first felt way back in the late aughts when I first popped The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion into my PS3 and found that games could be less about the quests you're given and more about the adventure you make for yourself along the way. But first, with the way that all of us are planning on stuffing our faces with candy that we totally bought for the trick-or-treaters this month, you might be wondering how you can eat healthier and maybe even a little cheaper. But you've heard that cooking for yourself, let alone planning healthier meals, can be hard and time-consuming. Well, you heard wrong! I have decided that this Indieween I am going to showcase a fast and easy meal prep recipe in every video, and while normally I have the full recipe available at the $5 tier or higher on Patreon, all of these cooking tutorials will be totally free for everyone, no strings attached. I'll pin a comment below that'll take you directly to the standalone video of the cooking segment with a full, detailed recipe and even calorie and macronutrient breakdowns. Now, as always, your guys' support on Patreon is what makes Indieween possible, but patronage is never a requirement for these videos, so only kick in if you wanna and you're able to. These meal prep recipes are free and they are staying free. Now about that gameplay. Dread Delusion is a sword and sorcery game in its purest form. You have a block of fairly straightforward stats that aren't too hard to figure out what they do. You get a weapon that fits your build at the beginning of the game, and there are spells to be found all over the world. And don't worry, you can buy them too. The world is big and it's full of little guys. Some are friend-shaped, some are piñatas full of consumable items that you need. There's also stuff in all the nooks and crannies of this world, but you don't need to incentivize exploring this place, at least for me. I mean, look at it. Let's go over the core stats because that's always a very easy way to explain how a game works. Might is how hard you bonk things and how well you can shrug off getting bonked. That's not just how big the number is when you whack one of the little guys to pick the fight with you, but also stuff like in the event that Guile, this game's stand-in for dexterity, is your dump stat and you need to open a locked door, a high enough might stat means that you can just smash that sucker in. Guile is how much of a slippery little guy you can be and also governs your lockpicking skill, which is a literal dice roll, but I'll take that over a minigame. Wisdom is spells and stuff, which thankfully none of the spells seem to be gated by wisdom level. They just do more damage and you can do more of them with a higher wisdom since it governs your mana pool. I'm normally not about wisdom builds in my RPG, and if I dip into the magic stuff I tend to do a paladin adjacent character, being primarily a martial class that uses some magic to augment my attacks. But this time around I went for something a little more analogous to a cleric, where I'm primarily a spellcaster with some martial powers for when enemies get within bonking range. I think what does it for me here is that there's only one of each spell and it scales with your skills. There's no need to go and find better versions of your old spell or grind stats for new tiers of spells, and thanks to that, all the spells are really cool. You're basically handed the Town Portal spell, which is extremely useful on the Umbric Isles, and the first zone of the game contains all your bread and butter spells like Charming Enemies, Magic Bolt, and so on. Finally, to get things moving along, because I could talk about all those cool spells and stuff for too long, Wisdom governs the Lore skill, which is your ability to find and interact with magical items hidden in the overworld to reveal secrets. Finally, we've got Persona, which is your Charisma skill. It governs buying and selling stuff, speech checks, and if you can convince automated doors to let you in. And just to make it relevant for combat, it also governs HP regen. You know, I never thought about that, but I like it. It's always nice when a stat has a little something extra to make sure it doesn't leave your character totally helpless in the inevitable fights you will get into playing an RPG. Now how about that adventuring now that we've built our stats? Well, the Isles are a pretty big place and there's lots of stuff to do. Of course, you've got good old-fashioned questing, where those of you who are sticklers about it know there are no quest icons on the map, nor are there markers on a compass. You know, actually that's a pretty good segue into navigation. You see, you don't start with a map or a compass. You're just lost in the world until you happen upon one of these guys in their funny little buildings who are trying to map out the ever-changing islands. And so long as you volunteer to help them, you get a magic cartographer's book that lets you plot out local landmarks, which will then add them to the big void that is your map. Don't worry, it's not impossible to do, and you get a notification saying that a place looks like it's noteworthy enough to make a cartography of when you're there. And surely enough, you survey enough regions, and once you get a few of them in the same spot, that part of the map gets filled in for you. And you can hand in your notes for a fat stack of coins too. As for the compass, you buy it in the first town in the game, and it's something you need to equip in your item slot like a potion or a throwing knife, and then activate it when you're feeling disoriented. Having the compass equipped also lets you see your relative location on the map, but it's not pinpoint accuracy here. We're not using GPS. This is gonna be my favorite way of finding and using a map in an RPG for probably a long time. It incentivizes exploration. Nothing is handed to you, but it's still forgiving enough with landmarks being clearly marked. And even if it wasn't, the act of exploration will get you knowing your way around the area no problem, even without a map. I think I'm forgetting. Oh, quests, right, quests. I love the quests of this game. They're all unique things that have their own little stories, like how in the starting area you need to resolve a dispute between a local township and a mercenary company who has somehow came into the possession of a giant monster. Or this one in the area after that, where the Inquisition is worried that someone might be trying to resurrect a god. Or the seemingly inconspicuous quest that starts by looking at a missing persons bulletin in the Clockwork Kingdom's capital. These aren't even the main quests, by the way. These are just side stories that end up being so much fun to complete. There's all the other fun stuff you'd expect from an RPG, like buying and upgrading property, searching for rare materials to improve your weapons and armor, exploring local towns, and talking to literally everyone. And oh yeah, there's a big main quest you're supposed to do. More on that in a sec though, we've got other stuff to talk about. The last thing we want to go over in gameplay before we prep some meals is Delusion. Perhaps my favorite thing about Dread Delusion is not the map, not the side quests, or even the cool world, but how it does leveling up. Leveling up is governed by acquiring Delusion, an emotional and magical thing that allows you to see beyond your own base limitations and become something more. How do you acquire Delusion? You explore. You look for it in strange secluded places like ancient temples or in the ruins of old towns. It's in the bottom of mines or at the edge of the forest. It's where you'd expect to find forbidden knowledge. Of course, you can get a steady drip feed from questing, but if you really want to build out your character, you're gonna have to explore every nook and cranny of this world. You get no experience from anything of the like killing monsters or spamming crafting abilities to farm experience. Nothing like that. The way you get ahead in this world is to go out and experience it. Alright, it's time for some meal prepping. This is one of the simplest meals to prepare as everything just sort of lines up with each other time-wise, and also this is one of my wife's favorites that I make. Salmon with quinoa and broccoli. Don't get tripped up on the quinoa, it's basically South America's equivalent of rice, and it's a pretty nice thing to have in the rotation when you're bored of plain old rice, pasta, or potatoes. Frankly, the only real consideration for this one is that of all the proteins I use this month, salmon is by far the most expensive at $11 a pound, which is almost twice as expensive as the next priciest protein, beef. One meal at a time though. Realistically though, buying the cheaper salmon at Costco that is conveniently pre-portioned for us, it's usually going to be a little under $30, and you can't win everything, I guess. I guess for a price this makes up in just how easy it is to do. So about that prep. Start preheating your oven to 425 freedom heat units and then get a half-sheet pan. Put some parchment paper on that and then put some olive oil on the parchment paper. Place your conveniently pre-cut salmon fillet skin side down on the oil, and then we're going to hit it with some salt, pepper, and dried rosemary. Salmon is already a pretty flavorful meat, so it doesn't need a lot. Finally, for those of you trying to eat healthier, this might seem a little counterproductive, but we're going to add a single tablespoon of butter onto the top of each fillet from right out of the fridge. Did I just say fillet? Whatever. Skipping this will save you a little over 100 calories and I think about 16 grams of fat, but doing this will prevent the salmon from drying out after cooking and storing. It's magic, I swear. Let's get to baking. Okay, so we're gonna go a cup of quinoa as our starch for each portion, and these packets of salmon have 7 portions in them, so that's gonna be 2.5 cups of dry quinoa, which is conveniently about what one normal size, not Costco pack of dry quinoa will have in it, to 5 cups of water. Get that water boiling, stir in the quinoa, then cover and set to low heat for 20 minutes, which yes, this is basically the same as rice. And would you look at that? 20 minutes is also exactly how long we want to cook our salmon for. It's like we planned this. You know what else we can do inside of the time it takes to cook both of these things? We can steam our veggies. I use 2 packages of steam in bag broccoli, which take 6 minutes each to steam up in the microwave, meaning that you'll have more than enough time to get these cooked and into a bowl for portioning while everything else is cooking. Hey, look at that. Through the power of video editing, 20 minutes has passed. Pull the salmon out of the oven and kill the heat on the quinoa, giving it a good stir to fluff it up before portioning. Now, one last thing to do with the salmon is while it's still on the pan, we're going to take 2 lemons and use a cheese grater to grate the zest off them onto the top of the salmon fillets. Also, give your grater like a little tappity tap when you're done, because like a bunch of the zest gets like stuck on the inside wall. Once we've got all the zest off the lemons, we're going to squeeze the juice out of one of the lemons over all the salmon fillets, and they are good to go. Really, do not skip the lemon. The lemon just makes this go from okay to great. All of this is basically ready to go for portioning. I'm using these 2 compartment containers that I got with all the others I used last time in a big package from the Sam's Club for pretty cheap. It also has some 3 compartment ones too, but I don't use those much. Now, what I like to do for these meals is to put the portion of quinoa, 1 cup each, onto the bottom of the larger compartment and then place the salmon fillets on top. Broccoli goes in the other compartment where it won't get messed with by anything, and you're good to go. Now remember to put only as much as you can reasonably expect to eat in the next 48 hours inside of your fridge, and then everything else goes in the freezer. Once you run out of fridge portions, add a portion from the freezer to the fridge, and by the time the next day rolls around, it'll be thawed out and ready to eat. Once you're out of freezer portions, it's time to cook again. This is the single most expensive meal we're prepping this month at $5.42 per portion, based on double checking online stores for packages that are just enough for this prep. But I am a big Costco shopper, and everything you saw here can be bought in bulk at Costco, so it can be theoretically cheaper to do this. I don't think you'll break the $5 barrier though. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this entire recipe with a standalone cooking video is available for completely free on my Patreon, and I've even got the price, calorie, and macronutrient breakdowns on there for you too. Go ahead and check it out when you're ready. Okay, let's get back to Dread Delusion. I have a confession to make about this one. I didn't get a chance to finish this game all the way through, so I'm not doing a story breakdown. However, this is not a case like Sun or Shock where I chose to step away because I felt the game was not in a playable enough state to fairly critique it. This is 100% on me because I was so engrossed in this beautiful world that I forgot to do the main story. I probably could have finished the game in the time I had set aside for myself to play, but basically I ended up abandoning most of the main quest because I just wanted to explore the Umbric Isles. I kid you not, there were multiple times where I just decided to stop whatever I was doing because I had a good view of the Neuron Star as the time of day slowly changed, and I just felt like taking it in. I also got completely lost at several points and even accidentally skipped an island and a half worth of the game just because I kept wandering off to do something. I saw something cool and was like, whoa, what's that? I want to go check that out, and then wound up doing that one after another until I ended up accidentally prematurely smuggling myself into the Clockwork Kingdom 2 major quest lines ahead of schedule and needing to go through all the quest lines there to get back on track and cross the border. Dread Delusion has managed to recreate the same experience I had when a middle school age me got my hands on Oblivion and was plopped into a strange and wondrous world to just explore. Yeah, there's a main quest and I'll get around to that, but in the meantime, there's so much of this world to just see and learn about. Dread Delusion is a wonderful example about how stylization trumps graphical fidelity every time. As while this very much is designed to emulate that mid-90s 3D design, complete with wobbly textures and models, which I opted to turn off after a bit, the style of everything just oozes with character, and every zone is a wholly unique place with wholly unique stories to tell. Each island is totally unique from the others, and some of the places that aren't really islands are all. Like, I don't know, screw it. One of the islands you go on is actually a giant crab thing. There's the ancient forest of mushrooms, a cursed kingdom where a mechanical god king has outlawed summer among a bunch of other things that are just completely insane, and the giant nautiloid. Dread Delusion also does that thing I love in all games where every cool thing on the horizon is a place you will eventually go when the time is right. There's mountains to climb way off in the distance, and that castle way off in the horizon is somewhere that's full of dudes that you're gonna have to kill. The world also strikes a nice balance between being big enough to feel huge, but small enough to where traveling doesn't feel laborious. It also helps that there's a lot of stuff between here and there while you're traveling. I also understand that eventually you get an airship that you can customize and fly around the world in, but I personally wasn't really in a rush to unlock the airship because I was doing fine with my magically enhanced running of extreme fastness. As the story goes that I've experienced so far, I love it too. You play as an unwilling agent of an inquisition set up after the people of this world decided that they had had enough of the gods' very active role in their lives and went to war against them, killing as many as they could and maiming the rest. You're after a rogue mercenary named Velikalos who has some sort of insane plan to create a life after death. And that sounds very much like God stuff, so we can't allow it. Now you've got to round up her former crew and figure out just what she has planned and how she plans to get to something called the Cradle at the very bottom of the world, where the surface used to be. Where the story really shines though is all the love and creativity put into the regional quests and side quests. Every one I've come across has multiple potential outcomes and tons of intrigue that can help you just learn about this insane world that lovely Hell Place has dreamed up. I don't want to get too crazy with spoilers for my favorites, so I'll just give you some vague advice. When you get to the Clockwork Kingdom, once you're in the city, don't do anything until you've had a chance to check out the Missing Persons Bulletin and do that quest. Leave no lead unfollowed before finalizing it, and then tackle the main quest in the area. You can learn so much about the world of the Clockwork Kingdom, and more importantly, how something as simple as a name can tell you more than the person using it knows. Final thoughts on Dread Delusion. Best in show, which will later become a very bold claim towards the end. My only regret is that I'm doing a video on it now, which requires the video and production to be relatively fast, where in hindsight I would have loved to take the time to do 2 or maybe even 3 full playthroughs to experience as much as I could with this game. And you bet as soon as I finally get some downtime, I am exploring every last bit of stuff I did not see in my time I had with this. And it's a crying shame I wasn't able to have more time for now. Asking for only $19.99 for this game is a goddamn steal. I'd pay double for this, but I don't have to. The total so far with Sonar Shock and now Dread Delusion stands at $27.98. Tune in next week to where the total will add up to $37.97 and we'll get some good old-fashioned horror games in here. Yep. There's gonna be a freebie next week on top of a new game that's paid for. Be sure to follow the link in the pinned comment below to get that full recipe for the meal prepped salmon we did today, and remember, while patronage is never necessary, every bit you can kick my way helps out, and I appreciate everything all my patrons do for me. You really do make these videos happen. Now let's sign off. Remember that no matter what you do, be it writing, singing, or arranging flowers, what you do should never be called content. It is art. Content is a word that's been twisted into meaning a means to grind up all your skills, passions, and aspirations into a gray slop that's meant for nothing more than to make a line go up. Your art in no way deserves that. Art is sacred. Art is inalienably a reflection of the person who made it by the very act of its creation, and in no way do you deserve to be reduced to slop. So get out there and fight for your art by fighting against the contentification of everything. You're worth it. Stay saucy, everyone.
Sir, I think you're upside down.
You just letting it lay out? Hanging out with me down here on the floor while I was installing new batteries into your laser pointer? Oh, it's coming close. Oh, are you gonna get it? Oh, it's getting away. Yeah, it's getting away. It's like hard to get it close because like his face is right there. Come on, you can get up, you can get it. All right, again, don't want this too close to his face. That was close. We're gonna move in a bit so I can aim it better. Oh, we have got him right side up. This is some serious progress. Oh, he playing. We are enriching the lad. It is happening. Are your claws stuck in the carpet? Nope. It was a trick. Ooh, booty in the air. Booty in the air. He's getting ready. You look concerned. Wait, let me try. Oh, you got it. You got it. Sweet baby boy got it. Oh no. Are you overstimulated? You'll be fine.